Welcome to this explainer. We're skipping the usual intro today because I need to drop you straight into the harsh reality unfolding on the ground right now. Imagine waking up to the sound of literal artillery tearing through your neighborhood. Right now, in June 2026, a massive and deeply tragic human narrative is playing out in the Horn of Africa. This isn't just some abstract political dispute. It's a full-blown humanitarian catastrophe playing out on the streets of Mogadishu. We're going to look closely at the data, the security reports, and the geopolitical shockwaves, but we are starting directly with the people caught in the crossfire.
The worst violence in the capital in years, when local residents describe the sudden, terrifying eruption of gun battles in Mogadishu this way, we absolutely need to pay close attention. This isn't a low-level skirmish. This is intense, heavy, street-to-street combat between government forces and mobilized militias.
Okay, let's dive into this. Mortar shells are hitting civilian homes. Families are literally being forced to flee with children in their arms, dodging active urban shelling just to survive. The raw, human desperation of a parent trying to physically shield their child from a mortar strike is the defining image of this crisis. At least 2 armored vehicles have already been destroyed in the fighting. It's chaotic, it's deadly, and it's happening right in the middle of heavily populated civilian centers.
Section 1. Origins of the crisis. So how did we actually get here? This sudden explosion of urban warfare wasn't a random act of chaos. Let's walk through the timeline together. Step 1. The Somali parliament made the highly controversial decision to extend President Hassan Sheikh's term in office. Step 2. In immediate response to that extension, militias loyal to 2 of the president's political rivals mobilized. Step 3. This mobilization directly triggered the government forces, leading to the severe urban gun battles we're seeing today. And finally, Step 4. The tragic result on the ground: mortar shells destroying the homes of innocent people. This perfectly illustrates how a high-level parliamentary maneuver instantly cascades down into localized, tragic violence on the street.
Section 2. Famine in the crossfire. Now, what's absolutely crucial to understand is that we cannot look at this urban shelling in a vacuum because it's colliding with an entirely separate, naturally driven disaster. Today, around 6.5 million Somalis are facing crisis-level hunger. That number has nearly doubled in just 12 months. Think about that. We have 6.5 million human beings caught between a failing climate and active urban warfare. 1.8 million. I really want that massive number to sink in for a second. That is the number of children currently expected to suffer from acute malnutrition in this region. Almost 2 million kids require urgent, life-saving nutritional support right now. And remember, these are the exact same children whose parents are currently trying to carry them through active mortar fire in the capital. The convergence of these 2 crises is almost unimaginable.
Section 3. The global funding shortfall. So how do families even survive when they're facing both starvation and shelling? Well, they rely on international aid. The data brilliantly illustrates the massive logistical footprint involved here. The World Food Program, or WFP, is responsible for delivering a staggering 90% of all food assistance in Somalia. Everyone else combined makes up just 10%. The WFP is the primary lifeline keeping millions of people alive.
But here's the deeply tragic irony. The WFP is currently cutting back their assistance. Why? Because of severe global funding shortfalls. Just process that for a second. At the exact moment starvation metrics have doubled to 6.5 million, at the exact moment almost 2 million children face acute malnutrition, and at the exact moment Mogadishu is experiencing its worst fighting in years, making physical access to food nearly impossible, the primary agency responsible for 90% of the food is forced to cut back. It is a deadly compounding of crises.
Section 4. A global media blind spot.
If this catastrophe is so severe, you might be wondering, why aren't we seeing it on the front pages every single day? Well, it's because of the global spectacles currently dominating our news cycle. While millions starve in an ignored crisis in Somalia, global attention is completely locked on the FIFA World Cup kicking off. We're seeing massive drama over Iran's sports minister debating if their team will even play in the U.S., following the U.S.-Israel attacks on Iran back in February. We have Pope Leo XIV declaring the Iran war unjust on a papal plane. We even have breathless coverage of whether Donald Trump's image will appear on a newly proposed $250 bill. We are dealing with high virality, lower-stakes spectacles completely overshadowing an ignored, life-or-death humanitarian catastrophe in the Horn of Africa.
Section 5. The threat of power vacuums.
Now, putting on my analyst hat for a moment, we have to assess the wider geopolitical risk here, because this isn't just about localized tragedy, it's about the fundamental structure of global stability.
First, Somalia is facing localized power vacuums. When a parliament unilaterally extends a president's term, it fractures perceived authority, creating a void that rival militias violently rush to fill. Second, this directly mirrors the massive post-war leadership void currently destabilizing the Middle East. With Khamenei dead and no confirmed supreme leader replacement in Iran, we are seeing a massive regional power vacuum. And third, this demonstrates a critical trend. Whether it's the streets of Mogadishu or the geopolitical theater of the Middle East, regional instability and fractured authority inevitably drive wider, much more dangerous global conflict trends.
Which brings us to our final point, and a question I want to leave ringing in your ears today. What is the true human cost of international diplomatic apathy? When the world is distracted by a $250 bill or World Cup drama, 6.5 million people are left to face starvation and mortar fire completely alone. The power vacuums we ignore today become the humanitarian catastrophes of tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you next time.